A couple of days ago, I did a video where we announced that the Philippines will reopen to fully vaccinated foreign tourists on the 10th of February. Now, there seemed to be some confusion by many people, and including myself, I must admit. And what they were saying is that the Philippines is allowing unvaccinated people in. Now, in some places that I was reading, it did sort of look like that, which had me in two minds, I must say. As you can see, I actually posted in my community tab where it said, looking at this, perhaps unvaccinated or partially vaccinated tourists can enter the Philippines with a stay in quarantine and a negative PCR test on the 5th day. Am I reading this correctly? Now, the reason I was thinking that, because here it says unvaccinated, partially vaccinated, and unverifiable vaccination status, where they're talking about quarantining and getting a PCR test on the 5th day and then home quarantining until the 14th day. And people were saying, well, what if you don't have a home in the Philippines? So if you're a tourist and you'll be going to a motel, well, what it turns out is that no, they're referring here to Filipinos, citizens, or people with previous visas, so like business visas, for example, who are coming to the Philippines, and not for those of you who are coming on a tourist visa. And I know the confusion wasn't just on this channel, it was on many channels, and it has been clarified since. So what does it mean for unvaccinated people? We know that fully vaccinated people can get in from the 10th of February, but what about unvaccinated? So we can go to this article here where it says, after nearly 2 years of closed borders due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Philippines plans on reopening to some fully vaccinated tourists on February 10. Officials made the announcement today that travellers from most countries will finally be allowed to enter after plans to reopen on December 1 were scrapped due to the spread of Omicron variant. So just recapping, those countries that can enter the Philippines from February 10 are the ones on the list for the non-visa countries, such as the US, UK, Australia, and so on. As it says here, the announcement to reopen will allow fully vaccinated travellers from 157 countries who were previously permitted to enter the country without a visa before the pandemic to resume travel to the Philippines from February 10. Some people are saying, well, what if I want to go for more than 30 days? Do I have to renew my visa, or will they even allow me to renew the visa? And to me, it seems like it's going to be the same conditions as it was before for these visa-free countries. So you can go there for the 30 days with no visa, but if you wish to stay longer, you can apply, I'm sure, for an extension on that, much the same way as you did before. I haven't heard anything to the contrary on that. And as we know, it says the Philippines reopening plan does not involve any sort of quarantine and only requires a recent negative COVID-19 test before traveling to the country. So that was within 2 days of traveling to the Philippines. You need to have that negative test done. Now, what some of us were confused about was the unvaccinated travelers, which it says here, unvaccinated travelers from any country will be fully banned on February 16 from entering the Philippines. Now, this is where another bit of confusion can come into this. If they're opening on February 10 to foreign tourists, but then they're saying unvaccinated travellers from any country will be fully banned from February 16. Does that mean there's a 6-day window where unvaccinated people could possibly get into the country with a quarantine? I'm not sure on that. Maybe those guys out there who know more on this can clarify that, but that's sort of how it could read, or maybe I'm just, again, reading a bit too much into it. And really, there's probably no loopholes here, although the Philippines there could be. But so I think it's safer to assume, rather than going out and getting your tickets and everything if you're not vaccinated, I would be suggesting that you need to be vaccinated to get into the Philippines at any time at this point. Now, in the future, that could change, and I'm sure it probably will change, where they will let vaccinated and unvaccinated come into the country. But at this time, I think we're all better playing it safe and just saying, well, it's for the vaccinated only from the 10th of February. Now, it gives us a little bit of insight as to why the Philippines has decided to reopen in this article. While many countries are opening up because their infection rates have gotten so low, the Philippines has a different approach. As the Health Undersecretary explained, the country recognised that its domestic transmission rate was higher than many other countries, so it made no sense to restrict travellers from those safer countries from entering the Philippines. About half of the 110 million people in the Philippines are fully vaccinated, and the country has had over 53,000 fatalities due to COVID-19. Now, a lot of people have been saying to me, well, what does the Philippines class as fully vaccinated? And I think from here you can infer that it's 2 doses. 2 doses of the vaccine, first, second dose, and then you're classed at this point in time in the Philippines as fully vaccinated. They mentioned nothing about boosters, and really the booster program has only just started in the Philippines, I believe. And then they go on to say the Philippines has been economically ravaged after international tourism was shut down. Then stringent restrictions were put in place even for travel throughout the country. Before COVID-19, nearly 13% of the country's gross domestic product was from tourism. But international arrivals fell 82% in 2020 to just 1.48 million people. And the sector made up just 5.4% of the GDP. So clearly, as I've been saying all the way through for, I don't know, the last year or more, that the economic situation in the Philippines will be and is a big driver in them reopening to foreign tourists again. So I hope that gives you a little more clarification, certainty around vaccinated and non-vaccinated in the Philippines and where they stand on this at this particular time. Anyone entering the Philippines needs to be fully vaccinated and have a negative PCR test 48 hours before arriving, and also ensure that you have at least 6 months on your passport at the time of landing in the Philippines, and also an onward ticket or a return ticket. And for those of you looking for a throwaway ticket, I have a link in the pinned comment and description where you can get one of those at a very good price, as well as I've also got a link for those looking for exceptional airfares from wherever you are to the Philippines. So be sure to check that out as well in my pinned comment and description. And let me know, guys, if you're planning on going to the Philippines this February or even in the next few months. I'd love to hear what your plans are. I assume for most of you guys that'll be going over there very shortly, it's going to be to meet your Filipino for the first time, or perhaps to reconnect with your Filipino girlfriend or wife, or you're just wanting to get in there and explore the country. Perhaps you're thinking of retiring there and you want to check it out first. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.